What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency Podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by Virtual Intelligence, your premier partner for client-facing and back-office virtual employees. My name is Stephen Shawn, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, of course, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald, founder of Sound Harbor Insurance in Long Island, New York. Mr. Fitzgerald, it is 2025. 2025.
Yeah, man, that went quick, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. What you're getting today is a solo pod with us, folks. And as usual, pretty unscripted. I think, by this point, most of everything that we've done is unscripted past. Like, hey, we want to talk about this with the guests. We want to talk about that. Right now, we're going to put ourselves in the hot seat a little bit to hopefully, inspire you to do some reflection on your 2024 year, what looks good, what you learned, and, looking ahead at 2025. Yeah, you're not kidding, Sean. Let's see, in 2024 we hit 2 years of the podcast, so that's crazy.
Yeah, we had our annual mastermind meetup, which was
we had
awesome.
Our annual mastermind meetup that we made happen, and we did an episode about that, inspiring people to make a mastermind and the power of that and the impact that it had on us. And it was a good year. It was a great year. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, we wrote a 6-figure account together too, so that was pretty fun.
Oh, we did do that. That's right. Merry Christmas, everybody. Yeah. Right around Christmas time too. Perfect timing.
Yeah. So man, 24 was a good year. Learned a lot. I mean, I got a long list of stuff I did, but I got to do our first annual summit in person, which was super interesting. And it's something I want to do every year. It's kind of a vision I have for the agency, and obviously it's a little difficult. We got some virtual, some in person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to figure out that balance of how to make it work. But for the first one, just Ryan and I and the wives got together and we went to Ocean Resort, and we just did 2 hours of goal planning, and all of us had dinner together, and it was just a good time, man. We got to build on a relationship level, and then we also got to build from a vision level, just understanding where we're all trying to go as a company and what we're trying to achieve. And it was just a really cool time.
So give me one word that sums up 2024 for you.
One word that sums up 24. I would say processes.
Oh, I'm shocked.
Yeah, shocking.
Who else is shocked out there?
Yeah.
Now, do you think when you say that, do you think that was a realization for you of how important that was in 2024? Or because I know you've had processes from the beginning, but you really doubled down once buyback your time came into your life and you got those processes and procedures, and we talked about that. But what was, why is that the word of 2024?
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I got a few more mentors into my life, and when I spoke to those mentors, and they all said the same thing of, they would say, hey, focus on these 3 things, but one of the 3 things was always related to process and procedures. And I was like, well, this seems to be a reoccurring theme. So Billy talks about it, Dan Martell, Patrick Bet-David, all these guys live and die by it, because even Brett, I spoke to Brett Young about it. And I think it just gets to the point where if you want to grow to a certain point, and if you want to have a scalable business, you have to have those processes, procedures, and systems in place in order to do that. And what you and I have heard a million times is, oh man, and especially speaking to the more experienced agency owners, you would always hear the same thing. Oh, I wish I would have just started this sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always related to process and procedures. So this year I really just tripled down on it.
Mm-hmm.
But what about you? What about you for 24?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you another question, but I know we're trying to make this short, so I'll save that to the next solo. No, because then we'll be on a 25-minute conversation. Me for 2024. I have 2 words, but I know that's going to break my own rules. I would say realization. And again, part of what we do, these solo ones, we're being vulnerable and putting ourselves in the hot seat here. I think I realized kind of what I want to build it T5 into, and what I want to do, and my goal for what I want to do. And I'll start by saying, I don't want to sell insurance policies forever. I don't want to sell insurance policies in the next 3 to 5 years, hopefully. my cup gets full from the community involvement, building a team, watching the team flourish, building those things so that, more of just like leading the team, helping other people reach their goals and whatever that might be rather than the producer. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the hunt, I love producing, I love the feeling of winning a big account, but
Yeah.
just for me, there's nothing better than just the working on the business side of things than working in the business. And I think I've had that realization because 2024 has for me has been the year of team, right? I started 2024 with one virtual assistant that's no longer here and myself, and now we've got 4 people including me. And it's cool. To build that. And the second word I was going to use was foundation, because I feel like 24 was a good year of just kind of like the realization of like, here's the foundation that I want to build, and like getting these processes and procedures in place, and coming up on our 3rd year of business of like, the VA does this and our now new licensed CSR is going to do this. And here's where I still need to be in the fold, because I still need to be in the fold. But then eventually that next hire maybe be able to take that so that I can rinse and repeat that team. And so, that's been the exciting thing for me.
And I think just to build on that, I think it's not a coincidence whatsoever that your 2 words happen to be actually extremely correlated. Like, the way to recruit people is to be able to show them that vision with like 100% clarity. So your word was realization of what T5 was going to look like. Because you got so clear on that, you were able to, it helped you in the recruiting process,
Yeah.
and it made you be able to grind more on a daily basis to bring in more revenue and write more accounts, which it sounds like you love doing every day.
Yeah.
So, now you just have the vision of when you're going to be out of writing policies,
Right. Yeah.
So it's cool.
Yeah.
What
I
about?
think, and I think it's okay if it takes a little time to get that vision, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have it from day one. I didn't know. And for me personally, like coming from the family legacy side of the business, I've talked about that a lot here. Like my dad grew a great agency, but like he still works in the agency every day, right? And like there was, it wasn't much more of like working on the business versus working in it, and they were kind of good where they were at. And it's just like the vision is different once you go through different experiences in life. Does that make sense? Like I
Yeah.
grew up in the family business. I grew up in that silo of how to operate an agency, of how to operate a business, and going off on my own and starting my own firm introduced me to new experiences, introduced me to people that are doing it differently, like yourself, introduced me to other people who in our scratch community I've met and have forced me and challenged me to think of a different way to do it,
Yeah.
And so I think if you have that vision, like it's okay if it changes and okay if it takes time, because the experiences that you go through when you're building the scratch agency is what's going to help you align that vision with what you actually want it to be, not maybe what you're just trying to tell yourself you want it to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I struggled with creating a vision. I mean, I think maybe I'm probably in the same boat as you. I mean, literally just this year, I finally felt like I grasped. Okay, this is exactly where we're going. This is what we want to accomplish. I read Vivid Vision by Cameron Harold. Like I had to read a book in order to like figure out how to create my vision. And one of the things it discusses in there, which I think the listeners might find a little helpful, is it's okay to be selfish with your vision, like what you want to accomplish from it. But I would highly recommend when you're creating your vision, incorporate how it's going to help others.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, for instance, one of our goals for 2025 is 250,000 new agency revenue. Okay, that's a selfish goal. But the second part of that is to get Ryan, my producer, over 100,000 in income. Okay, so that's like me helping someone else, helping him achieve that goal. So whether you're doing like an annual goal or a vision for the company, you could make it selfish, but I would have 2 separate ones, one that's selfish and one that is in some way helping others or your team, whether it's giving back to the community, which I'm sure you probably want to give like $10 million to the chamber or something. something cool like that, that you can apply to it. You know what I mean?
Or to the baby fund, either or. Yeah.
There you go.
What was a lesson learned for you in 24 when you think back? Just, like the first thing to come to mind.
Yeah. I would say the blue ocean strategy was a big one. So we spoke about it on the call with Brad a little bit, is like really, really working on and figuring out why would somebody want to work with me,
Mm,
right? If I'm talking to a potential producer at a networking event and he asks me about my job and he starts to get a little interested in the insurance space and I can sense it, what can I say to him that would make it intriguing to work with me, and what value could I give him for him to work with our agency, right? Because we spoke about it with Brad. I mean, he can go down the block, probably get more money, more benefits, work at a huge corporate place and settle. Or he can find a smaller startup that has an energetic, younger, driven business owner that has big ambitions and a big vision. And he can work with that owner one-on-one directly and be a part of that vision and potentially get equity in the company if that's what he wants, and be a part of something, bigger than himself, and can help inspire others and help others, become leaders and develop leaders under them, and, kind of be a part of a bigger vision, like you said, understanding the T5 vision. Now that you understand that, you can sell it to other people. So I think that was a big thing for me. Like, what's my blue ocean strategy? So if you don't have one, and this was actually advice Patrick Bet David gave me. I know you saw the video, Stephen, that he did in his app. Like, I just straight up asked him the question, like, hey, what are the things I should be doing on a daily basis to grow my agency to the level I want to grow to? And one of the things he said is know your blue ocean strategy in and out, why someone should work for you, and how you're going to provide them value. So that was my thing. What about you?
I think my theme of lessons learned for 24 was to appreciate sticking my head up in the sand. Um, every day isn't going to go the way you want it. There's going to be days where it went exactly the way you want it. There's going to be days that it went way better than you wanted. There's going to be days where you just got kicked right in the kahunas, which seems more often than not over here at T5, but maybe that's just a personal problem. But like, you look back like, oh, maybe I didn't hit my revenue goal that month, but I brought on a licensed CSR. Or, and like, it's funny. I have a friend of mine who's in a completely different industry. He's a funeral director. He could not get in a completely different industry than us. But he left his job and I left my job, and we started our own things at very similar times. And we were talking on the phone yesterday about, like, man, like literally a couple weeks apart. Like, can you believe what we've both done in 2.5 years? And it's like, we talked about it as like, I thought back at like leaving the family business, like all of that stuff, starting a scratch agency, hiring the VA, hiring the CSR, growing the business. Like, if I look back at like, I'm going to start over today at day one, like that stresses me out of thinking about doing it all over again. But like, here I am, and I did that. Right. So, I think people who listen to this podcast, like high achievers, people want to be better, people want to be learned, but there's power in like giving yourself a little bit of credit of like where you came from, right? I mean, you want to be hard on yourself to an extent to keep pushing yourself and all of those, but like sticking your head up in the sand every once in a while and be like, okay, like only in 2.5 years you've done X, Y, and Z. Insert here, whatever that's been, and appreciating that, because it fuels you to go to the next level. And on 50T5 podcast, the local podcast I do, I had a gentleman on who's a financial advisor last week. He's super successful. And one of the things he said that he wishes he realized, he's been 32 years as a financial advisor. One of the things that he said that he wished he realized sooner was to take the time off. And he said that, and whether that be a weekend away, whether that be whatever. And so he's gotten to a point where he goes to Jackson Hole once a month in the winter to ski. Like, that's what he loves. But he said, like, he realized once he got to the point where he felt comfortable doing that, how fueled he was to get back at it. Yeah. And like, and it's like, it's just appreciating that and understanding, enjoying the journey and taking it for what it is. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest like aha moment of just like, hey, today sucked, but today's just today, and tomorrow's a new day. This month didn't go the way it wanted to, but what did we learn from it to go forward? And
Yeah.
you
And when
still
you
have an
have,
agency and all these.
yeah, and when you have those, I'm sure most people listening are agency owners. Like, you're going to have a lot of times throughout the year, and you know, using one word too is like momentum, right? Is I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to this year that they let one thing ruin their momentum. So,
Yeah,
where you're sticking to a plan, something happens, you fall off the plan, but you had a ton of momentum for 2 months. One thing happened, you fall off the plan, and then all of a sudden, now you're like in a downward spiral, and you can't get out of it, and you lost all the results from the momentum. So it's like I've been trying to figure out ways to, if I fall off the horse with meal plan, whatever, business plan, cold calling, whatever I'm doing, it's okay. Just get right back on the wagon. Don't dwell and, oh my God, I can't believe I fell off. And then you
yeah.
start
Because
calling
what good's
people.
that going
I'm
to
not,
do? What
it's,
what good is that going to do? And you and I talk about it all the time. We implemented
yeah,
the 5-minute rule with each other.
yeah,
Sometimes you get 5 minutes to pout about it and then get back on the saddle.
yeah,
I can think back. I can think back in the 2.5 years of our friendship of like multiple conversations of like, oh, I'm sorry that happened, Stephen. You got 5 minutes, and then move on with your day. But like,
yeah,
but you need that reminder of like, hey, if this isn't going to matter in the next year, if this isn't, keep moving forward towards the big picture. What's the vision? Going back to what we talked about, what's the clarity? What's behind what you want to do, and focusing on that, because it's hard to do. Entrepreneurship is a lonely place. Having a scratch agency is a lonely place, right? So it's hard to do when you feel like you're out there on an island trying to start something or whatever, and nobody understands what you're feeling. Nobody understands what you're going through to try to start the agency, all of these things. It's hard to continue to just focus on the end result, but you got to do it.
yeah, yeah,
Easier said than
100%.
done. Example A, sitting right here.
Yeah, yeah, no, man. I think, I think you hit the nail on the head with it, man. I think 24 was a, a phenomenal year for the business, for the podcast, personal life. I mean, you got a baby coming soon, so that's I mean, that's big news. We had a bunch of stuff, a bunch of good things happen. So I think what you said is really important for everyone to pay attention to, is to like take a moment and just
Smell the
realize that
flowers.
it's a long game, and patience is part of it. Listen, when you sell a producer, what do you tell them? It's a long game,
Mm-hmm.
So take your own advice. Like, I fall into that trap all the time. It's like, oh man, I only did this, but I need to get to there, and you're always thinking about how to get to the next step. So yeah, sometimes take a breather. I'm with you on that.
2025, one big nut. What is it for Sound Harbor?
250,000 new revenue.
Love it.
250 new revenue, and then from there, I was falling into a trap of what do I do for 25? What's like, should my main focus be scaling, writing more? I don't know. I'm not sure. And I was having this battle in my head. And I talked to a couple of mentors, wrote it out, talked to a couple of people on my team. Revenue is the main goal for 25, new revenue, 250. What
Love
about
it.
you?
Hire a producer.
And please,
Hire a producer.
please tell people what you're doing with that, as far as, because I just think that it's such a good idea, is the separate account. Can you talk about that? Separate account. You put.
You know how I started this, guys, with saying that we don't script anything? I have no idea what Shawn is asking right now. I have zero clue what you're talking about. So hoping to answer your question. Be a little more specific.
the separate account you have for producer. The bank account. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back. See what
Okay.
we don't script this, folks. Okay. No, I have figured out what I want to pay a producer. We talked a lot with different people here about commission only versus base. I figured that out.
Yeah.
And so I've basically just given myself a non-negotiable to save up 6 months of what I've figured out to have that there. And that goes back to what we had with my friend Justin Miller on the podcast about budgeting and being, financially smart, of like, once I hit this goal, it's go time. And
Yeah.
that goal is actually underneath the 6-month mark, but that goal is going to allow me to start advertising, start having those conversations. And the same thing with the CSR that I had here. I didn't put anything on Indeed. It was just community conversations. So I'm going to start having those of like, hey, I'm looking for this type of person, looking for the right person on the bus, and then we'll find our seat. And that seat is hopefully going to be in the producer role. And so that's just, nothing crazy. Just trying to be diligent in in the last episode too with Justin, we talked about the transition from a hobby to the business, right?
Yeah.
And I repeat that so often. There's probably people that are rolling their eyes out there because I've said it so often, but it's like where I feel like I'm at right now. 2.5 years in, the renewals are coming in, larger accounts are coming in, revenues coming in, team members, payroll, blah, blah, blah. Like all these things are happening. And so that's just been one thing that I've been focusing on. I was like, all right, I'm going to create a separate account. I'm going to throw money there when I have money to throw there. And then when I get to that point, I'm ready to go rock and roll. And so I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to it to the sense of like looking forward to building that next team member that'll build our team. Like I said, with the clarity, like I just want a kick-ass team that has fun and everybody's achieving their goals in life, personal, business, whatever it is. And having to have T5 be the vehicle to do that is so rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool goal, man. I like that goal. I just love the way it gave me an idea too, because after 25, we're going to go in scale mode once we hit our goal. And I'm thinking of doing the same thing, like, hey, have a separate account, just put money into it, and that'll be the hiring account,
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you did that from like a budgeting perspective. I just think it's super smart.
Yeah, and I mean, our business with the recurring revenue, like Justin said in the last episode, like he likes to tell his clients from a CFO standpoint, like you either have to have the money for the next 6 months to where it makes sense to bring that person on, or have the plan of how that's going to pay for itself, right? And I think in the beauty of what we do, you can do it 758 different ways, you know, like
Yep.
like your producer, that story we've shared of and commission only, and that fit for you. It's not going to fit for everybody,
No,
and it's the right person, it's the right culture, it's the right agency that's all got to match and how you're doing things and how you're setting things up. So I'm excited for it, and it's going to come with its growing pain, just like everything else. But um, I'm excited for it. It's going to be a hell of a year, third year in business. So I'm excited for that, and excited for those third year renewals to hit. Got a countdown for that. That's also always exciting. But
profit sharing checks.
yeah, no, it's good, man. Just thankful, thankful for you and your friendship. To look back at, like, it's crazy. 2 years. I feel like we've known each other forever. And what we built with this community, and it's been a hell of a ride. It's been fun.
For sure. I mean, we literally texted each other yesterday, and we're like, man, this journey just without each other would have been so much harder. So, I mean, I think that's why we're so passionate about the community we're building, is because we know the community we had between each other helped us get to the next level. And we're hoping the Telegram and the Scratch Agency community can do the same thing for you guys,
Yeah. I was talking to somebody else about when I was doing the 5 podcast. They're like, how do you have the time to do 2 podcasts and this and that? And, people say with us, how do you have the time to do the podcast for this and that with just having a Scratch agency? And it's like, for me, the time, like, don't get me wrong, everybody, this is a ton of time. We'll be completely honest. Like, Shawn and I put a ton of time into this, and hopefully you guys enjoy it and get good content out of it. But there's already been the success stories of, like, hey, Shawn and Stephen, like, the conversations that you've had with people have completely changed my agency. For me, like, that's enough to just keep on going forever. And, like, yeah, absolutely. Would my revenue be a little bit higher maybe if we didn't do this? I'm sure it would be. Like, it's, I'm sure if we were focusing on just one thing, but, like, for me, and I know for you, like, that's what fills the cup. And the best part about it is, like, and I feel this way strongly enough to say it, we've never positioned ourselves as experts of anything, right? We've just said, like, we want to introduce you, the listener, to kick-ass people who are doing a great job, who can share their story and hopefully makes an impact on them. And how many stories have we already had in 2 short years of people like, man, this is so great, and, like, thank you for what you've done for the agencies. And what are we doing? We're just showing up here, with our microphones on and recording the journey. And 2.5 years ago, when Shawn said we got to do a podcast about this, and I told him he's absolutely crazy, that's what he said. Let's just record the journey and let's see what happens. And so we're 105 episodes or something into it, and it's been a wild ride. So we'll wrap it up. But 2 things I wanted to do. One, I wanted to just thank you, the listener, for the support. We just kind of did that right there. But thanks for joining the community. Thanks for following along. Thanks for listening to every episode, sharing it with anybody in your circle, in your town that it might hit home to, because that's what it's all about, is just making an impact, making our industry better, and making your agencies better. The second thing, Shawn, with timing, I want to do is just announce that our boys at Virtual Intelligence have supported us again with their sponsorship. And the sponsorship that they support us with helps us with the editing, helps us with the editor we have to get these things out on a weekly basis. It helps us get the content to you. So, we're by no means making money off of this. We're just super grateful to put it back into the show and put it back into the editor's hands. And more importantly, so grateful for Michael Cruz, Jason Cass, the whole crew at Virtual Intelligence who has supported the show again for another season. And we really appreciate that. And I say it all the time and I'll say it again, but it's so cool, the journey with Cruz, with Virtual Intelligence, and how On Hands VAs, which is Cruz's old company that was purchased by Virtual Intelligence, and all of them have now morphed into still supporting the show. And Michael Cruz was one of the first supporters of us, and he's become a great friend. And the masterminds, you just never know where the connections are going to take you.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, man. It came full circle. I mean, Cruz is even in our personal mastermind group, which only has a few people in it, and we get a ton of value from Cruz. He gets value from us, and it's just a give take relationship for all of us, and it's a beautiful thing. So again, that's one of the beauties of this industry, man, is everybody's willing to give a hand, everybody's willing to give advice and help each other, and I'm convinced there's no other industry like it.
I love it. Let's wrap it up. We haven't done much of asking, folks, but I'm going to ask one thing. Do us a favor and share the show. Do us a favor and share the podcast with anybody that that might be scratched, that might be in the first couple of years that could get value of this, because none of this would be possible. We wouldn't be able to have the continued different guests on, the continued new conversations without you doing that. So appreciate you listening along to the two of us here. Happy New Year to everybody. Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. 2025 is going to be great for everybody, and we can't be more thankful to be a part of that journey with you. That's another episode of the Scratch Agency podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, check out the YouTube channel, subscribe there, check out the Telegram. Most importantly, remember, 2025, dig down deep, believe in yourself, in your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.